Well, greetings, vinyl community, and welcome to yet another VC Friday. And for some unknown reason, I number these, and this happens to be episode number 200. And because 200 in Roman numerals is CC, I get to start off with an album I recently picked up by 10cc, the original soundtrack, and this is their third album from 1975, and one that, I was just slightly put off about buying because it has that song, the inescapable big hit from 1975, I'm Not in Love, that big schmaltzy song. But it's actually really good to be kind of forced to sit down and actually listen to that song, because the whole atmosphere of it being so lush and so anodyne disguises the fact that it's also quite a weird sounding recording. And if you don't know the story behind it, most of the backing track is created from tape loops of the various members' voices just singing vowel sounds, and looped in a sort of manual mellotron contraption or operation. And it's really strange because, of course, there are some places where the required note is really way down below the person's vocal range, so you get this very distorted version of the person's voice. And it really is a very unusual and very creative recording. And just the fact that the basic song is such a simple and schmaltzy song kind of disguises the subversive nature of the actual recording. And subversive is probably a good word for the album in general. It's full of the band's trademark wit and kind of satirical approach, as well as highly ambitious musical arrangements. It opens with the epic suite Une Nuit à Paris, which is in three sections: One Night in Paris, The Same Night in Paris, and Later the Same Night in Paris. Now that in itself gives you an idea of the sense of humor reflected in the song. Other epic tracks: The Second Setting for the Last Supper, Brand New Day, which really goes through some changes in sort of balladry, a very, again, kind of schmaltzy, basic spine to the song, but it's taken to so many different places. And then we get into the boisterous Life is a Minestrone, and finally, this one has to be like an act of aggression against the listener, The Film of My Love, which is this horrible, corny song with a sort of Italianate arrangement and a chorus of over and over and over that is sung over and over and over for 2 hours. It's a 5-minute song that lasts for 2 hours. Now, this was 10cc's first album for the Mercury label. Mercury heard the recording of I'm Not in Love, realized it was a big hit, and signed them up, said, we'll give you anything we want, just sign and give us that song. And what did they do? They didn't release it as the first single in England. They released Life is a Minestrone, which is a very, very goofy song. Certainly wouldn't be a hit in America. It's just too silly and quirky. It would have gotten somewhere, but it wouldn't have been like the massive success that I'm Not in Love was. In America, they released I'm Not in Love as the first single from the album. In the UK, they had to learn their lesson from Life is a Minestrone. Well, they didn't, because that was a hit in itself. You could get away with that in the UK. But they released I'm Not in Love as a single second there and got to number 1, got to number 2 in America. So they definitely gave the band scope for a lavish production. What have we got here? We've got a cover with a kind of fancy spot varnished section in the middle. It's a gatefold. This copy is a cutout, so I've got a missing corner there. It's got a separate lyric sheet. And we've got the Mercury Records inner sleeve. 10cc, the original soundtrack from 1975. So I found that album at my local shop, Vinyl Solution, together with this one from 1973, Baron von Tollbooth and the Chrome Nun by Paul Kantner, Grace Slick, and David Freiberg. And this is the third in sort of a series of albums that form a transition between Jefferson Airplane and Jefferson Starship, starting while the airplane was still active in 1970 when Paul Kantner released his first solo album, credited to just Paul Kantner, as well as having the Jefferson Starship name appear for the first time. But Blows Against the Empire, great album, conceptual piece that I did a whole video on about 5 years ago, if you care to go digging for that. That was followed up in 1971 by Sunfighter, and this time it's credited to Paul Kantner and Grace Slick, and it's a bit more of a mixed bag than the Blows Against the Empire album, even including a song sung and written by Jack Traylor, band associate, which really doesn't have a lot to do with the whole Jefferson Airplane bloodline. Then this came out featuring not only Kantner and Slick, but also David Freiberg, one of the latter-day Jefferson Airplane members, as one of the main characters here. Now, there's also Grace Slick's solo album, Manhole, which came out in between Baron von Tollbooth and the first Jefferson Starship album. But this isn't really part of that bloodline, even if it's part of the timeline, because it's more of a side project, much more experimental in nature than any of the albums surrounding it. So what we have here is basically the last of all the original Jefferson Airplane members playing together, at least until that one reunion project that everyone pretty rightfully ignores. We have on the last track on side 1, which is Your Mind Has Left Your Body, the final recording with all 6 of that last Jefferson Airplane lineup, including Jack and Yorma, plus Jerry Garcia, all playing together. Otherwise, and that is a Paul Kantner composition, we get some good Paul Kantner epics on here. For me, the best material on here are the songs written both lyrically and musically by Grace Slick, of which there are, I think, 3. So those solo Grace Slick compositions are Fat, which is a song with very oblique lyrics, and Across the Board, which is her ode to the male reproductive member, and Fishman, which is apparently, assuming it's the same song as Flying Fishman, a song that was originally intended for the Jefferson Airplane album Bark, and mentioned in a Rolling Stone interview, but it did not appear. So, again, assuming it's the same song, it appears here. Otherwise, there's one song with lyrics only by Grace Slick, the opening track, which is Ballad of the Chrome Nun. But music is by David Freiberg, and that one is more kind of straight ahead, very kind of ordinary sounding rock and roll song. But the Paul Kantner science fiction-y epics are good. The Grace Slick sort of out in left field songs are good. A few other songs on here are just kind of taking up space a little bit, including a song by Jack Traylor. He had a song on Sunfighter, and he has a song on here. He's a band associate. He had an album on the Grunt label with a band called Steel Wind, but it's just sort of there. It's like he's a band friend, so we'll let him have a song on our album. Nice packaging on this. It comes with a fancy inner sleeve with the lyrics as well as a separate insert with detailed credits. So from 1973, Baron von Tollbooth, which is a nickname for Paul Kantner, and the Chrome Nun, which is a nickname for, as you might guess, Grace Slick.
7 inches of pleasure. 7 inches going home and somebody wants to measure.
So I was in San Francisco on Saturday and stopped off at Amoeba and picked up a couple of items, including the 1981 release from Tangerine Dream, Exit. This is a US copy on the Elektra label, and I've got the band on the back as well as a funny little white marking where records on the WEA family of labels at this period were putting these little kind of foam stickers that were an anti-counterfeiting move and had the Warner Brothers logo on them in blue. Somebody's peeled this off, but that's not a tear. That's actually still part of the sticker that's so adhesive. The surface part was peeled off, but that bottom part of the sticker is still on there, and I think it will resist pretty much any physical or chemical attempt to remove it without completely destroying the cover. So we have the early 80s lineup of Tangerine Dream, featuring the mainstays from throughout the 70s and most of the 80s, Edgar Furza and Christopher Franke. And the third man in this case is Johannes Schmeling, who was in the band starting with the Tangram album, a couple of albums before this one. This is a proper studio album following up their soundtrack to Thief, and it's a bit of a compromise between the classic, more spacey Tangerine Dream sound and a cleaner, more rhythm-based approach. It does have some longish tracks, 8 and 9 minutes, that have different sections, but a lot of it is based on fairly conventional rhythmic patterns. The most similar to the classic Tangerine Dream sound, the one that doesn't use electronic drum sounds very overtly, is the final track, Remote Viewing. Very good 8-minute, 20-second epic piece, still based on easily followed rhythms, but more sequencer driven rather than the actual drum sounds. You get the kind of bubbly synthesizer effect, keeping the beat down. A couple of tracks on here, by contrast, the song Choronzon or maybe Horonzon, and Network 23 were released as a single. So, you know, those have the meaty beat to them. Opening track is Kiev Mission, which is the longest track on the album at 9 minutes 18, and features an uncredited female vocalist whispering in Russian, with obviously the names of the continents, which are easy to understand, but the rest of it apparently is some kind of message about the Cold War and the threat of them nukes. This copy has a really strong edge warp. Fortunately, it is smooth enough that it doesn't cause any audible problems with the playback. And the other album I picked up at Amoeba was World Record by Van der Graaf Generator from 1976. This is the third of the 3 albums that Van der Graaf Generator cranked out in rapid succession when they reunited after the hiatus that had lasted from 72 through 74, and that's not even counting the album Nader's Big Chance, which was performed by Van der Graaf Generator but credited as a Peter Hamel solo album just because the songs were intentionally more concise and rock and roll oriented and not quite conforming to the prog epic nature of Van der Graaf Generator. This, on the other hand, is very much in that epic prog vein. There are only 5 songs here, but the album is quite a long one. It lasts 52 minutes, and much of that is taken up with the very lengthy track Mergely's 3, the Songwriters Guild, which is a meditation on the songwriting process itself and an ode to Peter Hamel's electric guitar, on which he takes a very lengthy and untutored solo. So it's an exploration there. Not one of the shining moments of the album, I think, but it's a bit controversial, I think, among Van der Graaf fans, but there it is. There's still plenty of very high power and hard-hitting prog music on this album to satisfy the most demanding listener. When She Comes is the opening track, and it opens with a flurry of saxophones and flutes overdubbed by David Jackson, and goes into typically literate Peter Hamel lyrics that name-check Burne-Jones, William Blake, and Edgar Allan Poe in his picture of Une belle dame sans merci. Yes, he says it in French, too. A Place to Survive is a good strutting, hard-rocking Van der Graaf prog number, and Masks and Wondering end each side with strong organ work from Hugh Banton and Peter Hamel's characteristic declarative singing and just kicking out the proggy jams.
When she comes, she'll be a stranger, stop, stop. You'll try to protest as the drum beats out the danger too late. You should have noticed that the lady with the skin so white, like something out of Blake or Burne-Jones.
And then one more record found at Vinyl Solution on a separate trip from those other 2. Le Mystère des Voix Bulgares, Volume 2 on the Nonesuch Explorer label. This is a release from 1988, and this is a U.S. pressing. We're back in French again. Le Mystère des Voix Bulgares. Why is it French? Why, if it's Bulgarian music, why does it have a French title? Well, this is a follow-up to the original Le Mystère LP, which was originally released in 1975 by the Swiss musicologist Marcel Cellier, whose name is there, on his own label in Switzerland. And it wasn't until the album was discovered in the 80s by Ivo Watts-Russell, who fell in love with it and released it on the 4AD label, that the album really caught on and became a bit of a fad. And so there were these follow-ups, including this Volume 2. And this is choral music by Bulgarian female singers, mostly unaccompanied. There is at least one track on here where there's some instrumental, and I'm not even sure what the instrument is, whether it's some kind of bagpipe or organ, some instrument that provides a textural backdrop for the sounds of the Bulgarian women singing. And the Bulgarian women are using a traditional scale, so it's not quite in conformance with Western tuning, and that gives it a very spicy sound to those of us who are accustomed to the Western equal temperament. And I picked this up as a sealed copy, so here is the hype sticker. So that's another VC Friday done and dusted. Next week we'll have special guest Robert Fripp performing Does Your Chewing Gum Lose Its Flavor on the Bedpost Overnight? Yeah. Sorry, that's been canceled, but I'll find something else to talk about. So be well. I will talk with you again soon. Bye-bye for now.
Does your chewing gum lose its flavor on the bedpost overnight? If your mother says don't chew it, do you swallow it in spite? Can you catch it on your tonsils? Can you hear it left and right? Does your chewing gum lose